Whoa.
Hello.
Whoa.
What's
The intensity.
cracking?
Feeling that
to be
track.
here.
Feeling that track.
The overriding theme of this whole conversation is that we would be producers of creativity, not just consumers.
Yeah, that's it.
And we love consuming, but how cool is it that we can produce? So we hope that you leave this conversation feeling like you want to create something, feeling like you want to produce something, and hopefully with a few tips.
How has the journey been in terms of maybe what you first imagined when you realized that, hey, I have the ability to lead people in this way, to now? Would you say, has the journey been worth it? And what's been your big takeaway just straight off the bat?
It's definitely been worth it because when you see, from a coaching perspective, when you see people developing their skill and their passion and it changes the course of their life, you feel so responsible and you feel so blessed, I guess, because you get to see people come from here to here, and it's definitely worth it because you feel and see the life change. So that's probably like the biggest thing. The life change is what makes it worth it with the people that you're working with. And awesome. Through the journey, it's like everything that we've been talking about, the care and the kindness and that genuine sort of authentic love for the artist is inside of me. So to be able to work with creatives and help their dreams come alive and help their passions come alive is a dream for me. Yeah. When I was thinking about coaching and what I feel like people were drawn to me with initially was skill and experience. So my coaching really got kickstarted when I lived in Atlanta, and I was dancing for some artists and specifically a choreographer that was really successful and really well experienced. So he worked with Diddy and Boys to Men and TLC, and so I really looked up to him because of his experience and his skill set. And when I was working under him as a dancer, I was really busting butt to try and be the best that I could be. And I remember weeks and weeks on end just crying every night, I can't get that groove, what's going on with me? And it was like a love-hate relationship. I'm like, I'm gonna quit, this is over. So I understand the struggle for all of you dancers out there. I do get it. But that hard work and that, I guess my first point, Dre, is that skill and experience is what draws you to your coach, right? Because you love what they produce, you have seen sort of what they've got a track record, that type of thing. So I guess if you are a leader, it's important that we work on that. It's said that repetition is the mother of skill. So if you're not that skilled at something and you want to be a coach, then just do it over and over and over again and get around someone that can coach you on that, and that will really help. So the skill and experience, and then also being in that environment of hard work was really valuable to me. And so I have taken that into my coaching, essentially, that hard work. And then you can always, when you're working with a coach, you can feel and sense their character. And if it's that of integrity, then you're going to stick with that coach. And I know for my coach, Chris Flanoy is actually his name, in Atlanta, he would always challenge me hey, I feel like there's a little bit of pride creeping in, and I really appreciated that because he did that for me. And so really when I started to work as a coach myself, I just took all those sort of things on.
Life lessons almost.
Life lessons, exactly.
It's a really interesting, you brought up a really interesting point, which I think in the church context is maybe, I don't know, I think it's a conversation that we need to have more, and that was your first point about upskilling. And I know that's something, Ben, that you're really, heavy on, about actually being good at what you do. Do you want to make any comment on that?
I think...
Just be good at what you do.
Just be good at what you do. I guess do everything you can to be good at what you do.
Exactly.
It sounds simple, right? But do everything you can to be good at what you do. And I think, to really work on craft and skill can sometimes seem like a selfish thing to do. I think that's where I'm trying to get at. But really, if we're all honest, that they are the things, we've found this in our experience, that it's the skill and it can be the gift
Yep.
that you've been given, the talent that you have is actually the thing that initially draws people to you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's out of that, and it's what you actually do with that as an
Yeah.
individual. You
There's
know?
also a scripture that says, if the axe is sharp, you don't have to do. If the axe is not sharp, you have to do double the amount of work.
Right.
But if the axe is sharp, it makes the job quicker. I
Yeah,
think what it's saying is,
Yeah,
if
it's
you're
good.
good at what you do, you may find things easier to do.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a no-brainer, but like it's so true.
Yeah. So
if you're,
true.
so I think if you're, it's probably. I mean, it goes without saying, but
Makes it a bit
is-
easier.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
guess also, I mean, from my experience, hard work always out-trumps talent.
Yeah.
So even if you're not feeling like super talented or like I don't feel that gifted in that area, the repetition is the mother of skill.
Right.
You just
Yeah.
got to keep working and
Yeah,
working,
yeah.
working at it.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's always going to be people better than you.
100%.
So I think it's always
Thanks
it's
for the
about
reminder.
yeah, I know. Every time I go on YouTube, I have
Don't
some
go on YouTube.
complex. But yeah,
Guys, don't scroll.
yeah, don't scroll.
Those
That's
people.
good. It's good. Yeah,
Yeah, for real.
yeah,
Any other comments you want to make on that? I know some of the tables you've been around and some of the rooms you've been in has also helped develop your skill, and I know at one stage you're working with Evander Holyfield and sitting in his staff meetings and working with him as like a artist development coach.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us how that came about and maybe something that you learned from some of those. I mean, this is one experience, but from some of those experiences, I mean, we're talking about Evander Holyfield, he's a sporting icon, and being in the room with these people, these kind of people get to where they are by hard work, what we're
Yeah.
talking about, a skill set.
Yeah.
Was there things that you could glean off or get from him, and how did you find yourself in rooms like that?
I found myself in rooms like that through assisting Chris.
Right.
Because
Being
I
an
had
assistant.
Yeah, I basically worked with him. He was working for Evander Holyfield, and then I ended up getting some jobs that he didn't get. So,
True.
or he just passed the job on to me. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's being consistent in like just showing up
I like
and
that.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
trying to. I mean, I worked through the really hard stuff with Chris, in the early days to be like, oh man, this is like really hard work, but it paid off in the end.
Yeah.
And it got, it does get you in the right rooms if you
Yeah.
just keep showing up and
Yeah. Being consistent in that, like
yeah.
you say.
And
Yeah.
I think also being genuine and hardworking and integrous is like,
Goes without saying.
and it goes a long, long way.
Yeah. Almost just the idea of serving somebody else's vision,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
being there, open up doors of opportunity for you
Yeah.
to step into.
Yeah, yeah.
And probably if you hadn't done the hard work with Chris, you might not have been ready for those opportunities. And so I guess for people who are being led by a creative leader, take that on board too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, turn up, be
Yeah.
consistent.
Yeah, yeah.
And in those hard moments, and then maybe those moments where there's conflict or confrontation,
Yeah.
those, it's that scripture that talks about iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the things that actually help make you and shape you into what
Yeah.
you need to be for your next
Yep.
your next thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's that whole thing, growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone.
So true.
It just doesn't. And
Yeah.
some of the best producers that I've ever worked with have pushed me to the absolute limit where I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Or like, I just don't feel like I can do this anymore. And then, it brings out the gold or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
greatness in you. Like,
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's like that whole thing. I think as creative leaders, we need to look, understand that there is gold in everyone, and then go to work and start mining.
Yeah.
Start mining for that gold, and because just if we understand that and realize that, then actually it's actually the work of the leader that actually has to do the mining.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there can be individuals who just don't realize what they're sitting on, or
Yeah,
what their
yeah.
gift is, or something from their past experience, or something that's holding them back. And I think as a leader, and especially in the area of artists, when you're leading artists, they can be sometimes a complicated
Yeah.
group of people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But not to say that they aren't more complex than complicated,
Yeah.
and actually have beautiful things to contribute. But it's about helping shape that and
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
that to life out of people.
I guess just the environment that you create to coach, like everybody needs a coach.
Yes.
So no matter where you are always learning and always a student.
Yep.
And at the same time, we all have an opportunity to lead someone,
Yeah.
don't we?
Yeah.
So true.
Or coach somebody.
Yep.
So I guess it's putting ourselves in that environment where we're both, and we're,
Yeah.
you know, always looking for opportunities to learn and lead and upskill and all that.
Learn and lead. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Being the coach and being the student.
Yeah.
Yeah, or sometimes it's both ends. It's like being a player coach,
Yeah.
where you're actually coaching a team, but you're on the field as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess that's somehow, you know, sometimes that's probably more likely how we do it,
Yeah.
like being a player coach.
Yeah. That's probably what I think about you too. You're always taking
Right.
classes.
Yeah.
Upskilling.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. Yeah. Always like taking classes from
My students.
your students. Yeah. So, you know, but you're always keen on upskilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's so true. I think one thing that I was chatting to the guys about earlier is that it's recognizing in my coaching journey, it's recognizing in myself moments of insecurity or jealousy that enables me to grow through and be a really great coach. Because you don't want to set a ceiling for people that you're leading
Yeah.
or people that
Yeah.
you're coaching. You want to see the greatness within them, and if they exceed you, like most do, it should be our greatest pleasure. And so I've just recognized those things inside of me, which I think can be quite vulnerable to say,
Yeah.
you know, because jealousy is an ugly thing,
Yeah.
and insecurity just holds us back and
Yeah.
Yeah.
is riddled with fear and what people think of us,
Yeah.
you know. But as artists, we often all face these things.
Yep.
And so I guess I wanted to just say it's real and it is okay, but the way we get through it is recognizing it in ourselves and actually like kind of calling it out for what it
Yeah.
is, like
Yeah.
going, hey,
Yeah.
this is jealousy in me and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not okay and I'm not going to have it.
Yeah.
And
So good.
and when you can kind of, I felt like I disable the power of those feelings or those emotions or those thoughts when I say, look, I see you and you don't belong here. And I literally feel like it just sort of falls away.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you also just celebrate the greatness in the people that are around you.
Yeah.
And I think it just makes you a really great leader because, like you say, if we're constantly looking for the gold,
Yeah.
it will just bring out greatness in people.
Yeah,
But when we're driven by insecurity or like those feelings of like I'm not enough or I'm not where I need to be, or, you know, those kinds of thoughts or feelings, it can only limit the growth within our teams and
totally.
with the
Yeah.
artists that we're leading. So
Yeah.
if you're facing that stuff, just call it out in
Yeah,
yourself
that's
and
Really good.
just say you don't belong here and
Yeah.
like, you know,
Get it to move on.
yeah.
I like that point. I mean, celebrating the wins because I feel like your win is my win.
Yeah.
And if we're part of a team and a community,
Yeah.
when Ben wins, I win. You know, when I win, these guys win. And it should be the same within your teams too. Whether you're the coach of the team or a player in the team, whether you're on the bench or in the starting five, so to speak, whatever it might be, the win is the win, and we all contribute to that. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's really important. I think the other thing too is that as leaders, sometimes we can get a little bit precious about our
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I know for myself, like if I might have an idea or a concept or a project that I put out on the table, but if you can come up with a better idea and a better concept and make that thing better, 100% I'm going to go with it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be too precious to hold on to my idea because at the end of the day, it's about getting the best ideas out.
Yeah.
That are going to be the most effective for
Yeah.
the world and make the greatest impact.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't do me any favor, right? I'm still having to
No.
make the call as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
leader,
yeah.
but if your idea is better, then let's run with that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how can I now serve that idea?
Yeah, yeah.
How can we now all rally around what
Yeah, yeah.
that thought? Because at the end of the day, that whole thought was started by someone who spoke up.
That's right. Yeah.
And so as a creative leader, if you're a creative director of a church or the creative minister or in a business or whatever, it's about bringing forth those ideas,
Yeah.
running with vision, but then allowing other voices to speak,
Yeah, yeah.
allowing your team to have their moments where they get to speak up
Yep.
because the golden side of them might be in that moment
Yeah,
that
yeah.
then you have the opportunity to either discard or grab onto. And then I guess on the flip side of that, and I don't know how you guys have dealt with this, but what about when people, what do you do in those situations when people come up with ideas and they're just not going to work?
I
Ben?
don't know. I don't know. I think
Just walk out of the room.
just give it time.
Yeah.
They normally like fade away. But
Let's look at that idea next week.
Yeah, that's a great idea for 2030.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think everything everything is valid in one sense.
Yeah.
And I think if people are actually in the thought process and
Yeah.
thinking, they're actually putting energy to it.
Yeah.
It might not be not any kind of idea that you're going to run with.
Yeah.
But there could be something in it that is something that can be used
Yep.
or saved.
Yeah.
Like that's not actually a bad thing. If
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
has a thought now, hey, you know what? That's not going to work for this project, but it might work for another project. Love that.
Yeah.
Put that to the side.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
use
And I
it
guess it's
somewhere else.
always creating an environment where ideas are welcome and like nothing's ever
Even the
wrong
most
or
out there
you know,
idea. Yeah.
and it could spark that other idea. So it's
So true. Good
essentially
point.
if people aren't insecure or feeling some kind of way about themselves, there should be a good environment
Yeah.
for people to grow and move forward in the idea process or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How do you develop that culture? You might have touched on this earlier, but maybe to reiterate.
Developing
That kind of culture where people can bring their ideas and they don't, especially in this Kiwi culture, I feel like in New Zealand in particular, you know, we get so nervous, precious, fearful about even putting our ideas out there.
Yeah.
Then, you know, we all know the tall poppy syndrome as
Yeah.
well, where if people have their ideas are too grand, we begin to cut those people down.
Yeah,
That's a real problem in our culture
Yeah.
that we're facing all the time. That as the church, I think we can actually fix
Yeah.
and do something about
yeah,
that. And so
yeah.
it starts within our teams.
Yeah.
So what's maybe one thing or a couple of things where you've seen through Swarm and through leading creatives and dancers where you've helped that culture where people can contribute to the table and not feel like, oh, I'm going to get shut down?
I think it starts within me, but that I'm not leading with insecurity.
Great.
True.
You
Yeah.
know, I guess I keep coming back to that because if I am insecure, then I kind of want to control everything
Right. Yeah.
and make sure that it's like kind of,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I did that or
Right,
whatever
right.
it is. And I believe in the art of delegation. So I love going, hey, run with this
Yeah.
and, you know,
Yeah.
and see what people come up. You got to trust your team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
You really got to trust your team because they can't grow unless you give them wings to fly,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Actually, that reminds me. I've definitely had people in the design team. They come with. Some people just love drawing random things, like just like ugly random things.
Yeah.
And when you work for a church or a like organization like ours, sometimes you don't want to go too extreme as well. But they come with it. I think it's about, like you said, trusting the artist, the person who's doing it, and trying to see where they're coming from.
Yeah,
And
nice.
I would look at it and be like, oh, that kind of looks random, but it looks like Picasso or whatever. Picasso did a lot of random things. So
True.
just put some identity to it, and then you try and like
That's good.
shape them from there. Instead of saying that's too random, let's rework on that. Instead, it will say that looks like something Picasso would do. Let's look at what Picasso did and just like steer the direction in a more like what's the right word? That's more like easy to be digested by our audience.
Yeah.
So I think instead of cutting that idea, I think we try and find something good in it, and based on our knowledge of what we've done, we shape it, in what direction, how we can work.
Yeah,
So
good.
yeah,
That's awesome.
And it's more creating space for people, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
it.
I think if we create that space, we're
Yeah.
able to create an environment where people feel like they can bring their ideas or that really random choreography or that really like weird design to the table, and they're not going to be judged. They're going to be accepted. They're going to be trusted. They're going to be loved. It's a embracing environment to go, look, just make something.
Yeah, it's
make
it.
something. It's like
Especially when
so
you're
good.
Especially when you're throwing ideas out there and expecting and wanting people to run with a concept, but create their own, right? And the creative process, as we know, is so ambiguous
Yeah.
that as a leader, I guess you have to make sure you allow for that.
Yeah.
Can't put too much structure around it,
Yeah.
where people can't actually develop their skill set, their gifts,
Yeah.
and also giving them time to grow.
Yeah.
Not just as an artist, but as a person. Because how much do we know, and maybe we can touch on this, how much have we found art has healed us
Yeah,
or
yeah.
helped us or
Yep.
led us in our lives?
Yep.
Do you want to comment on that, Al? No, not at this point?
No.
Ben?
can bring it up later.
Okay, we'll bring it up
I'll
later.
think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, have a think about it.
Yeah.
Have a think about it. I'll put them on the spot. Have a think
Yeah.
about it. What we're going to do now is we're going to very soon, like in a few moments, we're going to cross to Aaron McManus, who is a friend of ours from Los Angeles, who, like I said earlier, is the creative director and campus pastor at Mosaic, an incredible community, incredible church in Hollywood and all around Los Angeles and beyond. I mean, I think they've got like 7 or so locations there around the world now, so we're really excited to have him. But just to say, we're going to talk a little bit about discipleship tonight. So in terms of leading artists in the ways of love, leading artists in the ways of Jesus from his teachings. And a disciple is that, someone who imitated Jesus or followed the teachings of Jesus. And that is something that Aaron is doing very well with his community out there, and something that we endeavor and want to do as well here as a part of Majestic. But discipleship is really the process of unleashing your creative potential.
Yeah.
Yo, there he is.
Hey, mate.
How are you, bro?
See me? I can see you.
Yeah,
I can
we
see
can
you.
totally
Yeah.
see you.
We can see you, man.
Awesome. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, man. I
It's
appreciate.
been a while.
It's been a minute.
I know. It was supposed to be a short trip, and it's.
It
I
turned
know,
out-
what the heck?
It turned out to be a little longer. In fact, Aaron was supposed to be here with us now
That's true.
for Mode Conference, for ModeCON, but
He is.
but he is here now.
Yeah, he is.
But
But not here.
not here now. It's
I'm up in the air.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Cloud.
You're in the
coming-
atmosphere.
You're coming to us from somewhere else, and we appreciate it, bro. Let's put it that way. What is it now in LA? What's the time there, man? Like 1:30?
1 in the morning.
1:30 a.m.
Let's go.
Dude, we appreciate it, man. But I'm guessing this is your hour, man, where things just start to develop and grow.
Man,
I don't know if
I think when you're a young artist, that's the hour. When you start getting into your 30s, you start learning to be really creative at 9 a.m.
It switches. Make that note, ladies and gentlemen. Make that note. Hey, so as I said earlier, Aaron is the creative director at Mosaic, and also runs a campus as well there. And he's had a really interesting journey, and maybe you want to touch on that too, Aaron. Coming from the fashion industry, really, and then moving into what you are currently now doing. Maybe do you want to give us a little bit of backstory on that, how you went from that to now what you're currently doing with your life?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, in 2010, I dropped out of college and helped start a few companies in men's fashion, and kind of began like at the bottom of those companies, and helped with production, then started working with like design, then started working with the business end of things and the marketing side, and then kind of moved over to helping like acquire a men's suiting company, and then helping them get into stores. So it was kind of growing things from the ground up, and really learning from incredible people, and really having no idea what we were doing, and making some really cool progress along the way. And we ended up being in like Barney's, which doesn't exist anymore, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, we wouldn't even
Really?
know. We think Barney's a dinosaur right here, bro.
What's that?
So
It's
crazy.
like a
That's so
department
funny.
store, right? Like a clothing store.
Yeah, clothing store.
Like our Farmers or Ballantines,
Ballantines.
but maybe cooler.
Oh, it's like cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite cool.
Well, if those ones still exist, I guess it's not that much cooler.
Well, that's true. They do still exist.
we did that and for a few years, and then we ended up selling those companies, and which was kind of cool. I was pretty young, and then we moved. I basically decided that I needed to go make some life changes, and I wanted to go corporate and try to like do this for real. And the dream was just to kind of move to New York, to move to London, Paris, Italy, and keep going. And I got to New York and ended up making some good friends, and worked for a company called YSL and Yves Saint Laurent.
Did
And
you say YSL? Stop it.
YSL? Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun. I didn't actually know what it was at the time. I was still
You're still on
That
that
is
Barney's.
awesome.
You're still on that Barney's, bro.
only brands I knew were really small and kind of indie, and so I was introduced to kind of this whole wide world of like luxury goods and old ateliers, and so I really got to learn a lot from kind of the gram on like the wholesale kind of brand ambassador wholesale team. So it was really incredible. I got exposed to so much, and that's where, in the middle of all that, I was trying to figure out my faith journey, and walked into a church and gave my life to Jesus for probably like the 23rd time, but this time it's stuck. And
It's stuck.
And it really helps when you have like a
23.
panic attack during the worship service, you know?
Right.
Your nightclub promoter is like sitting in the same row, and you're like in a bad place. And I called my dad, and he was like, "You went to church on purpose? Well, who is she? What's her name?"
Right. Good
So I
call.
was just alluding to where I was at in my life, and moved back to LA for a job offer, and ended up walking out of the meeting and cordially, but just realizing that God was so clearly calling me to work in church, and there was no job for me in church. So and surprisingly so, people are surprised at that. It's not a joke or a lie. I was like, "There's a job, right?" And he was like, "There's absolutely no job." And I had no car because I was living in New York, and I was living out of a suitcase, and I had no money, and I luckily was able to crash at my parents' house, but from then I worked for the next year and a half for free, and just dragged my way through things, bartended, was a waiter, did whatever I could to make money, and it was
cool.
very humbling going from this very luxurious job where I got given thousands of dollars of clothes every few weeks to like literally selling everything to figure it out and kind of start over. And it was maybe the most beautiful experience of my life to go from having a lot to having very little, and then gaining a lot again, and then giving it away to realize what my actual purpose was. And so moving back to LA, I was made the social media manager back when Instagram started, and I hated it, absolutely hated it. And so becoming a creative director really for me was trying to get out of doing social media as fast as possible. And the only way out was in.
Yeah.
So I started pretty much a lot of our creative teams by just, I started our photo team by buying a camera and just taking photos and hoping to God someone would tell me like, "Hey, do you know what kind of camera it is?" And I would be like, "No, you can take the photos. Here you go."
Love that.
And so things have grown now, and now we're at a place where we have like a few hundred creatives, and we have 7 or 8 campuses and up the West Coast from Mexico City to Seattle, and we're doing some really cool stuff. And it's brought me to full circle to a place now where I get to kind of talk about what God has done in my life with really amazing people in every sector of creativity. I got to chat a little bit ago with the Apple team and talk about how our fountain, we did a fountain home video where we
cool. I loved it.
That was a great video, by the way.
Oh,
Great
man,
video.
it was so dope.
Loved it.
And it was just a random kind of like 5-minute Zoom call, FaceTime call, and it's funny working with family, and you know how this is. Rarely do you ever agree. So
Yep.
So when
Try
you
being
do,
married.
What a call out.
I would love to try. I'd love to try. I'll try it someday. No, but we all agreed, and we got it done, and it was just really cool because it opened some beautiful doors, and kind of like got to share my faith story with some of the Apple team, and they were so just like, "What is God? Like, what is church?" And I was like, it's not Steve Jobs. It's really a fun time. So I love it. It's my long way of getting into church, but that's kind of how I am.
That's amazing, though.
Cool.
It's beneficial, right? Because a lot of us probably out here and this end of the world probably haven't heard your story. And so just to catch a bit of that tonight, it's really helpful for us to see where you've come from, where you are. Would you say that the things that you learned while say, at YSL and all those places, you've been able to translate into your current role?
I didn't think so when I was doing it. I complained so much internally and on the phone to my dad every night when I got home. My role was different from working with celebrities and helping them purchase whatever they were doing at the time. I worked with our PR team. I worked with our big stores like Bergdorf Goodman and Barney's and Saks, all of our Manhattan locations. I kind of was the brand connection there. And then I'd sell thousands of pieces of clothing during a wholesale market week to all the majors around the world, which was like a really incredible experience. you're learning thousands of pieces of clothing in French. They don't translate it because they hate American, and rightfully so. And I even worked with like their creative direction team, which was like at the time a pretty tight knit crew. And so I'd go in and help design the stores with the teams that were laying everything out. And so I got all the grunt work. So I would literally like measure. They would have like 200-foot walls that were full of like hundreds of heels, shoes, women's shoes, and jewels. And they would make me measure the distance between every single women's shoe on the entire wall.
Wow.
And I remember spending, I think I spent like 6 hours doing the initial like Soho store launch, and they could have helped me. They just refused to.
Yeah, no one wants that job like Instagram, like social media.
Yeah. So, and I remember thinking like, what in the world? Why would I ever need to learn this? What do I ever use this amount of detail?
Yeah.
And what it did though is helped me create where I don't necessarily have like a tactical creative thing that I do. My background's in film production, film like writing and directing, but it helped me understand like having an eye for space and having an eye for the room and being able to walk in somewhere and understand the attention to detail and being kind of trained in kind of one thing. My first day on the job, they handed me a 200-page book on why Hedy, who was the creative director at the time, Hedy Slimane, why Hedy does what he does.
Wow.
It was called the Hedy Bible.
True.
Yep.
And there's no joke. And then another 100-page book on why Hedy uses Helvetica and only Helvetica, which Ben would love.
Yeah,
and so it's the only font I'll pretty much ever use.
I think so too, yeah.
I've been brainwashed. But I learned an assortment of things that I never would have thought. It was kind of that wax on, wax off season of my life where I feel like I was doing the mundane to really hear God's voice.
Wow. And so, man, that's incredible. All of those details are incredible. I mean, measuring the shoes and space. I mean, everything.
It's a great party trick. I can tell you how high your heels are.
I like that. Hey, so in that, I got a couple other questions here for you, and we'll just head into those now. For you, what has been the intentional? What has been the thing that you have intentionally done, I should say, in terms of your leading of creatives?
Yeah, I think initially we were coming off of kind of where Mosaic had 15 years before I got there. I wasn't coming to something new. I was coming to something that was being made new again.
Right.
And I was given the opportunity to kind of innovate in a role where there was a lot of things set in stone. And I think Mosaic had been historically like a creative church, but it wasn't necessarily historically the most excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we were on a journey, and we're still not. We're still on a journey to achieve excellence. But I really came in from a place where, not anything beneath excellence never made it on the showroom floor.
Yeah, right.
And so we really, getting from the mindset of, I had kind of been ingrained in me, the creative director I'd worked with before, he would never walk into a store after it had opened. He only stepped into it when he was designing it, when he was placing it. And then the moment it opened, he would never walk into it ever again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
So I kind of took that like aspect, that ideology, and just talked to that with our teams. Like the moment Sunday starts, it's over.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not interested in it. Like I'll listen to the podcast and I'm going to hear what God's speaking to me in it. But that Sunday isn't for us anymore. It's for everyone who walks through that door. And
Right.
the next Sunday, we're now looking at the next thing that we're doing.
Interesting. That's cool.
Continuing that process. But probably one of the first things was just helping like teach our young guys that we need to be a team.
Yeah.
Right.
No one. It was kind of the age where like everyone was tagging every photographer for every single thing and we didn't do that. And people would get so mad. I killed our creative team so fast, like just by that single thing. Like when I unfollowed people on Instagram from the Mosaic account, people got so angry, and it was so stupid. It sounds stupid, but it was such a big deal back then.
Yeah.
And we would like make rules. So I'd have like 3 or 4 different designers in a room, and we would all trade computers, and I would never let any one person own any one project. it sounds so simple now, but back then we were in kind of like a prideful era of like our church or organization and our creatives. And you lived in LA, you live in LA kind of sometimes. And, when there's not a pandemic, and
We
how
tried.
people, sorry, I would like it back then. I would just rather go to you guys though.
Yeah. Come out, bro. Come out.
It's a weird vibe here right now. But yeah, really, it's weird. Really just trying to help our team understand that like you come to Hollywood to be a star, but really like the galaxy, the universe is not made of a singular star. It's made up of thousands and thousands.
Amazing.
So
Great
cool.
picture.
Yeah. So the intention really was about, it sounds cheesy to be unified, but really to become like almost faceless in a way, and really like become this thing and this culture and being known for a reputation of togetherness,
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
We
That's
were conversating a little bit earlier about insecurity and how detrimental that can be to a team. And often, don't you find it's the most insecure people that want to shine the most?
Oh my God.
You know, and it's just so cool that you can create that culture within your team where it's like, nah, we're one voice, we're one image.
Yeah. I got a question around that because we're getting sent in questions while you're on. So a question, and it's around that, and so maybe we could, and you might have kind of already answered it, but I'll shoot it out anyways because they're popping up. What would be your advice on dealing with insecurity around your creative craft, or I guess around your art? How do you best outwork that and not allow the insecurity to limit you or the teams you are part of? So I guess someone's trying to, how do you best be a team player?
Yeah, I think one, it's like dealing with that insecurity, right? Like I use humor to deal with my insecurities.
True.
Right.
And I'm self-deprecating, but everyone has that thing in their life that they're deeply insecure about.
Yeah.
And it's not always the thing that you're talented at. It might be the second thing that you're trying to get more talented.
Yeah.
The second thing you're trying to grow. You know, like I'm not the best like communicator on a Sunday morning, so I'm trying really hard. So I don't trust all the people who say you did a great job, man. I'm like, you are liars. You're dirty liars. I hate all of you. I trust like the few people who I know will give me the right amount of critique to help me get to like one step further.
Yeah.
So because I know that I'm not gonna destroy the insecurity. That's like an area of weakness, and I've got to really lean into that insecurity and like grow it and not collapse in it. And I think so many times we can collapse in it and then become arrogant in it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It becomes a wound that we try to protect and like destroy anyone who comes to touch at it. And I think those are the things where you have to really set up great people. And I think you have to do it beforehand and go, hey, I'm gonna fail at certain moments on this journey where you have to really help me understand. Could you be a positive voice in those moments?
Can I jump in there and just ask, how did you, and it might not be an easy answer, but how did you, for you, go about that process of identifying those people that you now allow to speak into your world that way?
You know, well, I didn't get to choose my dad.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, he's one of those people who he's very subtle, right? Like he doesn't degrade, he doesn't bombard. My mom is like, that was horrible, Aaron. I can't watch you live. Like she's only showed up one time. Wow. And she cried the whole time because I wasn't as trash as I think she thought I was. But you know, there's things that make people nervous. Like it's hard for me to watch my mom preach. But the way I picked those people was genuinely the people that I trusted in my day-to-day life. I could trust in that way. Yeah. And the people who were completely unrelated to speaking, I picked people who don't communicate. Did that. Oftentimes when someone says has a critique and they mean it genuinely, I listen to those people because I genuinely want to see what their gut reaction to something, what their spiritual reaction to something was. They don't necessarily have the communication skill or understanding of my craft or what I'm working at, but they have a human, they're human. They have receiving the information or the experience. And sometimes there's people that friend who comes in once and goes, hey, that was really awesome. And I'm like, no, that was horrible. I forgot everything. But they didn't receive it like that. And so I think helping me understand that there's a process that is kind of beneath the process. There's so many layers to learning and dealing with
Yeah.
insecurity, that you can't just rely on how you feel. You got to rely on like what God's doing through you in the moment.
That's good, man.
cool.
And the importance of having a coach, right?
Yeah, the
Those
importance-
people, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
You need a coach,
Yeah.
and you need someone who doesn't think you're awesome.
right.
Yeah.
That's a
Like-
note right there. Take that. Did you have? Were you gonna ask something?
No.
No, you're good. He's like, no, I wasn't.
Not
No,
me.
no, not me.
No, why would I do
I'm
that?
I'll look after the Instagram.
Yeah, I got it. I'm good. I just read a graphic novel, by the way, and I love it. I was reading it tonight.
Oh,
Come
sweet,
on,
man.
man.
Let me know
There
what
it
you
is.
think.
There it is. Hey, did MEC come out tonight, right?
Came out tonight, yeah. a
Was
few
that
hours
was that early?
Well, like in the US, it comes out, I guess, at 9 p.m. on Thursday night.
Nice.
Yeah, like midnight Friday on the East Coast.
Shout outs to MSC,
MSC.
Mosaic Music, incredible album. I love Fountain, and we've been listening to what's been released so far.
Yeah.
Playing at the house.
Yeah.
So get amongst that. Make sure you get the album. The music's always good. I've always loved that about Mosaic. They take on the music and just what you've been crafting out there. And obviously that's your sister, Mariah. And I guess just another quick, just to throw in a question, what's it like working with a sibling? Because you're working on the same team. And I know from what I know that sometimes that can be a little, interesting. How do you manage all that? And I guess not just with your sister or working within family, but then also to your greater team, like managing those moments of conflict, confrontation. How have you dealt with those kind of things, and how do you continue to manage that and grow in that?
Yeah, I think this has been a year of it. Like the last 2019 has been super tough, just to be fully honest. And I think it wasn't necessarily anything anyone did, but I definitely took a lot of it on my own self going, I'm the older brother. I've got to find a way to communicate with my little sister and honor her and also respect her and elevate her. And she's strong and she's tough and she's not always warm. And so, and then I'm strong, I'm tough, but I'm weak and soft inside.
Right.
So if I really did hurt your feelings, I may not act like I care at first, but I definitely care, and I will come grovel at the end. And Mariah's not like that.
Yeah.
And so, working with a sibling, I think a lot of it has to do with understanding that the more you fight, the more you ruin the lives of every single person that works in between you guys.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I think it just got to a place where we realized like we were just making other people miserable and we were making each other miserable. And so we had to sit down and kind of break some stuff down in our own life. And I think there's always past stuff when you've known someone for 20
so
years
true.
and you've seen every good and ugly moment. We just had to really sit down and like go through it and like dig up the past and then break it down. And she was super gracious, and she's like a beautiful young woman who acts like my older sister and my mom and my girlfriend and my wife sometimes. So I have to remind her. And that's the other thing. We have to remind each other of our roles in each other's lives. And so this last week has been like this last 6 months have been an absolute joy, and it keep growing in it. And I think, and there's always just those days where you just know, like, I got to steer clear of Mariah on her day. And she knows the same thing with me. So
she's thinking the same thing, bro.
the same thing. And I think at the end of the day, we both have like tried to quit. I would say I quit for the first 2 years, like every month.
Right. Amazing.
And once you kind of like realize, like, I'm 6 years later working for church, that I'm not giving up on this. Like whatever I do on top of this is just added. Like whatever business I start or whatever project I work on, I do church. I'm a part of church.
Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah.
And I think once you both we both found our identities and who we are, or whether we work in other fields and also work in church, it's what we care about and what we're going to raise our kids. Yeah. It changed our perspective a lot of like, this is a forever thing. So let's not worry about what's happening on a day-to-day level, but on like a lifetime, Yeah.
Nice. Would that be like one of your kind of greatest motivations, I guess? Or can you share with us what's the thing what are the things that motivate you? What gets you up in the morning? Like obviously within terms of your role, Because I'm sure there's some days when you're like, man, not today. I don't feel like it. But, you know, what's the why that you keep in front of you? And
I think like I love looking at houses on the internet. Do you ever
here
do
we
that?
go. Yep.
Yeah.
There's an app in LA, in the US, called Zillow. And I spend so much time, like all my free time is on Zillow. If I can watch Netflix, I'm on Zillow.
Right.
Oftentimes when I'm on like a conference call, I'm on Zillow as well, just looking at houses. But I think that creatives are kind of like those houses where you can just look at all of their tools and all of their abilities.
Yeah.
And you can kind of look around inside their brains and their hearts and the way that they see the world, their creative abilities. And I just love scrolling through those things.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like directly I'm not a tactician. So like I can fudge it on Illustrator and Photoshop, but if that file goes to print, we have some issues. And it will be ugly.
Yeah.
So I love unlocking people, and I love piecing together teams. And so when I get the credit to win, it's almost kind of a joke, because I'm like, man, I was the person who touched that the least, but I probably called everyone and got them to work on it together.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. And that's such an important role.
Yeah.
Like that is the role, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I hope so. It's my role. So I hope it's important.
I hope it's working.
But that's the thing I like, you know, and I like to learn. Like, when I sit there, I make them teach me stuff, and they do it. And I forget it the next day. But I genuinely love sitting in the room and learning from people that I think are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like
great.
a beautiful thing. I think there's nothing cooler than watching like animators animate. And people being in their zone and like watching them flourish, you know?
I love that, man. I love that. And I think that's a real key for creative leaders in particular, about loving what your team is doing and being kind of invested in that way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's too many people who want it all.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
To be the worship leader and the preacher and the graphic designer.
Yep.
When people send me their resumes, they can do everything. I'm like, man, I don't know what to do with you. I can only do one thing, maybe.
Yeah. I hear you, man.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love this guy's.
Cool.
I love your honesty and vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Just being honest about and being real about where it's at. I mean, seriously. But can I jump in? I got another question. I got more questions coming through, so I just want to jump through a couple of those just to get to it for people. It's going back to something that you said earlier about the team, sort of how you had the team, then stopped the team, and maybe had to rebuild the team. So this person says, with the killing of the old creative team, pretty strong words there, but we'll go with it. How did you start again and start rebuilding? What were one of the practical steps that you took to do that?
I mean, there's that saying that beggars can't be choosers. So like in the beginning, I would work with anyone who is willing to like give any time.
Great.
And that was initially, right? And then the moment that I found someone who's really committed as well, and her name was Tess Roy, and she was a wild 21-year-old, like so wild that it was like I ended up becoming like the uncle, big brother, dad figure, and my whole family became her family, and like it was like adopting a grown child. But she was really brilliant at design, and now she's like an incredible woman leader who just had a kid, and her husband's a good friend, and she was like that first piece of that puzzle, and then it took her in, and then she found one girl named Nicole, and now that girl Nicole is like on staff at shooting like Adidas campaigns that I see every 5 minutes on Instagram, and I remind her that her camera is technically my camera.
That's awesome.
But you know, and it just took one person to really change the culture. And then when I had one other person, I was like, okay, we're locking in. Like, we're never going to produce trash. We're never going to be egocentric. And we're just going to build the culture one person at a time. And we had people quit on us so many times. Like our first photographer who shot MSC on tour, like I took a huge risk with a young photographer, and it went horrible. Right. And, you know, with churches, like they don't just leave the job, they leave the church, they leave your friendship. Like it can become a really like heavy thing, and I've failed so many times. And I think when you fail with people's lives, you try to fail as little as possible, as quickly as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that was the, you know, I was like, let's fail and work, but let's not fail each other. And so that was a huge
Let's
thing.
fail better.
Yeah. Let's fail better. And like when we fail, let's let's take time and become better friends and not leave in a destructive way with each other. And so I think that was, we were just harder up front. Like the initiation process was like, we don't want you on this creative team if you ever feel like we're taking advantage of you.
Yeah, it's
If
good.
you have those insecurities as a creative where you
Right.
feel people take advantage of you, you shouldn't serve on a creative team. You should go serve on a setup team.
Right.
Yeah.
Start there.
Until like that calling that God has on your life is like, I have to be on the creative team and I'm gonna give them everything I can.
Yeah.
I've like learned the attitude of serving and giving myself.
Yeah. So
But,
good.
and it just took one person, another person. And even now it's like, we just got a video editor 2 years ago that I'm like, okay, he's that next step. And now we've got an animator, and it's like, we're just gaining. And these people we prayed for. And sometimes I cry about it because I sometimes forget like the miracles God's done in my life. And I'm like, oh, like I actually did pray for it. But the thing didn't come for like 4 years, you know?
Yeah, wow.
And
But that's
if I had
something
had
right there,
earlier-
man. That's something right there for everyone, I think. I just want to pause on that comment alone, because 4 years, right? But the prayer doesn't go away, the need doesn't go away, but just holding on to that.
Yeah.
And now you're in hindsight, so it's easy to go, yeah, we got that, but it's 4 years, right? It took time.
4 years. Yeah, I mean, like we probably didn't have like animators for like, man, we're going 6 years now, right? Like we were praying for just one other person, like a third person for maybe 2 years. And when we met Nicole Lewis, who's an amazing girl, I remember we literally cried, me and Tess, and being like, this is an answer to prayer, God's answer to prayer. And it was super slow. Like I think people think Mosaic, it's like tons of creatives, it's full, but like it's hard to get people to like to put their lives aside. To give so much to church and at the level in which we were asking for, and the workload is heavy, you know that. And so for people to volunteer and do that, it was tough. And so now it looks easy, and they make it look
right.
so hard for so long, you know.
That's so good, man. And just even going back to that, we were talking about this earlier in terms of, starting again with a team. It can seem so limiting, right? But it's often in that limitation where your best creative genius comes from. And I think it creates opportunities for us to do different things and do new things. And so in terms of maybe a startup or starting a team, if we don't have that person, we don't have that. I love like what you said. You went ahead, you bought the camera. Let's put it into someone's hands. Surely someone can take a photo. Let's see if they're any good or not. It's trial and error. It's this trying new things. You know, if we don't have a band, and I guess I'm putting it out there to creative leaders and people out there that may be church planting or startups. Maybe you don't have a band. Play a track. Have a moment of meditation. Maybe there's someone in your team that's a DJ. Maybe there's other ways. There's other things that you can do. Don't always do what has always been done and call it that thing and call it church, because church is much more than that, and it's about the people. And so I love that in that limitation we can say, well, we don't have this, we don't have that, we can't really start, we can't really do, but maybe in that God's trying to communicate something new and fresh to us, and in that we can actually do new things and move into the future carrying those things that other people will then become a part of, and jump on new teams. And as that grows and builds, then of course all the other things get added, right?
Yeah, it's so good. I think greatness only can come in a deficit.
Wow.
Like you often, this being a pastor's kid, and you oftentimes get compared to whoever the person came before you, your father. My dad's a great communicator. People put that on me. I'm like, I'm not. That maybe isn't the goal. The goal isn't necessarily to be the greatest in the world. The goal is to be unique.
Yeah, good, man.
The thing that I need to speak and tell the story I need to tell. But I think with creatives, it's like when you have less toys, you will create great things.
Amazing.
When you have everything you want, like I can outwork so many other churches that have we met with a huge church, and this was incredible. We met with this huge church in the South that everyone would know. They're like number one in the charts and for music. And they wanted to pick our brain when we first started MSC, and MSC was their first record was bad, and they wanted to pick our brain though on how we do Instagram, and they were like, how many people on your team? And we're like, there's 2, and she was there. There's like 4 of them, and we're like, how many people are your team? And they're like, oh, there's 60. Like I think there was 30.
Crazy.
just for media.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Tess, who at the time had like never really been a part of another church, started like, there's actually a church out there that's hired 30 people to run their social media. And
Yeah.
like, I know that we can outwork those people. They do incredible work, but I was like, hey, look, we have more imagination.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
but we have more imagination, and there's so many more people willing to be unlocked,
Yeah,
and God can bring them. We're gonna get there. And to
love
look at it now, what we've built, it was from a deficit. It wasn't from an abundance, you know.
Great,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And I love that culture of imagination. I know that's something that Mosaic does really well and always has. And to keep cultivating that, man, is just beautiful. To be amongst it, and I think that's something that I appreciate about Aaron is when you get around him, there's something, there's this sense, there's this feeling of things are possible. Let's try it. Let's do it. There's new ways, and so man, I appreciate that about you, man. I got one more other question that I'll throw at you. People got questions coming in, but where was it? It's here somewhere. Oh, a simple one. Like, what's been the greatest thing leading creatives for you? What's like one big takeaway? Like,
Biggest takeaway, I think it's watching them when they leave our team and seeing how they succeed. Like, I love more than anything when people
It's
get
cool.
wow.
poached from us
Yeah.
to go on. Like, I'll never let a creative get poached from another church without. That's just a rivalry thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So terrible. It's such a terrible culture to have. But when someone gets like when our photographer, our like main girl Nicole, who works at the Venice campus and is on our creative team, like got hired to do Adidas.
Yeah.
It was just like genuinely like an answer to prayer in the time she was going through a season, and for her to get that, and then for her to have that story of like working with Adidas, telling everybody about Jesus, inviting them to church and getting them to come to church, and kind of this whole full circle thing. For me, that was like such a great moment. I was like, okay, this is the church is going to be the new Milk Studios. The church is going to be like Milk Studios is like the big fashion, editorial fashion, like studios in LA where everything's shot from you know, Vogue to wherever. And I was like, hey, it's going to come from us. It's going to come from us. And I think for me, it's like the most rewarding thing is I love being an identifier of talent.
Nice.
I love being right with people. And you're like, that kid had it in him, and he was less talented than the other kid who was unwilling to serve.
Yeah.
And I love betting on the one people wouldn't pick. And
Love it.
and maybe that's like unhealthy and not spiritual, but I love doubling down on people's talents and potential, you know?
Yeah, that's
So
good,
good.
man. So good, bro. Any other thoughts or questions from you guys?
No.
What
So
I
good.
thought
Yeah.
you think from the outside, there's like thousands of people doing creative for a Mosaic, but I'm sure there's more people that you haven't named, but you can list the few people, you know, like just to think that all the good stuff that you guys are kind of leading the way in that arena, and yet it's just a few people doing it, but who are full of energy and passion, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah. What do you mean? So your first part cut out a little bit. Can you tell me that again?
I think like to hear that you don't have like necessarily a massive team to do all the stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting.
Yeah, no, we don't. Like, honestly, Austin St. John is one of our video editors, and by one, he's the only one. And we have many now, but he's like the main one and the only one on staff. And I'm like worried about him. I call him every morning. I'm like, "Are you okay?" Because when everyone else got to take the last like month and a half or 2 months off for COVID, they're not doing as much. He's working like 7 days a week, and I'm like, "Have you seen your wife? Has your wife seen you? What do you?"
He's the guy that bought us dinner.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's that
and
guy.
that kid, and you're like, you meet someone like him, and he's like we're polar opposites. And when we first met, I'm gonna tell the story. He's asleep, so I don't care.
Yeah.
But he when we first met, we brought him on staff. He was like, "Hey, like help me become LA." Like, he's a Midwest kid, and I.
It's
yeah.
never
It was
gonna
a really
happen.
vulnerable moment, and I looked at him and I was like, "Man, this is the reason I like you is because you're nothing like this city.
Yeah. Stay that.
Because you're genuinely you, and like do not care. Like you're the way you are."
Yeah.
And I look at that guy and I'm like, he's the odd one. We're all the odd one outs. We're like the Goonies. Like every person is different than the other one, and there's not a ton of us, but somehow he's like this incredible like key to like helping other editors get really, really good, and he's grown it so much. And I see it, and I'm really grateful for the few people that we have, you know, and I'm like also just begging them to be able to do more. And so
Right.
it becomes my role becomes different, right? Like when I'm begging, when I'm trying to push them to do more, that's most people's manager's job. Like I'm just like hoping to God they ate 3 meals today.
Yeah.
They had more than 4 hours of sleep. And so like I realized that my job ends up becoming like a concierge. Like how can I make their life better to then hopefully like get more out of them, but also like that they're thriving in their personal life, and when all this is over, you're not feeling empty, you know?
Love it, man. So good.
Awesome.
We
Thanks
love
so
that,
much,
bro.
Aaron.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. Have you got any other final comments or things you want to add before we let you go and let you?
I'm so mad that I can't be there in person.
I know.
but
What the heck?
We appreciate that comment.
But I'm so grateful that I get to be with you guys and get to like actually be family. And there's a cool thing about this internet thing is that we actually get to chat. Let's do it more often.
Yeah,
So
so
good, bro.
cool.
Hey, man, we appreciate your time. Thanks for staying up
man.
with us. And if you want to, you can go take a sleep now. And we can't wait for you to come out to New Zealand and be here in Christchurch and hang out with the crew in the future. But we will see you in LA before then. So we're excited to be there with you, bro.
Thanks, man. See you guys soon.
Thanks, man.
man.
Thank you so much for your time. Talk soon. Give it
Thank
up. Aaron McManus, ladies and gentlemen. My man. So good. How good was that?
It was
Real good,
amazing.
yeah.
It's good, right? And I think he's a guy that it's like he's living that life that is worth following. And I think that's one of the key things, right? As being a creative leader is live a life that's worth following. And I don't know if you want to make comment on that or for you, Ben, like in terms of your role and what you've been doing here at Majestic as a designer, but also kind of more so in a short amount of time, actually taking more leadership roles within Majestic. How have you found that for you? Maybe what are some of the key things that you've learned along the way? And maybe just enlighten us about what you actually do with that in terms of apprenticeship and internship.
I guess I'm like a typical. There's no such thing as typical, but typical creative. Like I'm an introvert. I never saw myself as a leader. Even every time I hear my name next to the word leader, I still a bit random. But I do know that I love what I do, and I do that. And I think it's just that when I produce things that I love doing, whether it's great or not, people get drawn to it, and they come to me saying, "Can I just like come to your office and hang out and do creative stuff with you and learn from you?" And I didn't set out trying to build a team because I never saw myself as a leader. But I think it really happened naturally. People came and people hung out, and then other people found out that, you can go and hang in Ben's office and do design with him. And so more people come. So naturally, I ended up building a creative team, like a design, visual arts team. And 20% of the time we do work, 80% of the time we're just hanging out and just like, just hanging out pretty much.
Yeah,
it's not the most productive team in the world, to be honest.
Yeah.
In weeks we're really productive.
Yeah.
There are weeks where we just like hang out, get coffees.
Yeah.
But I think the relationship for me is more important. I find people, find them interesting as people, not so much for what they can do and what they can bring to the table, but they're just interesting people because they're creative.
I think that's good, man, and I think that probably just freed up a lot of people who maybe feel the same way, especially if you are a creative director or a creative minister or running a team. Sometimes you don't always know what to do with that team, but building relationship is probably one of the key things that you can do.
Yeah.
So if it is going out and grabbing a coffee, and because sometimes we can be so structured and, man, we got to get this thing done, we got to produce. But actually, out of relationship and conversations is where some of the best imagination is sparked.
Yeah, because
people feel valued.
Yeah. Because like when I started building a team, I didn't even know such a thing as internship.
Yeah.
And people said, are they your interns? And I'm like, oh yeah, true. Let's look up what internship means. So I looked it up, downloaded some lists of things you're meant to do as interns.
Right.
And I tried to follow them. It didn't work for me because I'm not organized like that. And so I realized this may be internship, but it's a bit different. I have to work it out for myself.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people potentially that may not see themselves as leaders or may struggle to stick to like lists that other people have made.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I just had to make it work, so I just made it work, you know,
Yeah.
Based on who I was and based on who the creatives were.
Yeah.
So this, yeah,
And I guess like even observing from the outside in,
Yeah.
people are drawn to who you are,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
catch a vibe from Ben,
Mhm.
so they like kind of want to be around you, not necessarily like your craft,
Yeah, yeah,
even though
yeah.
your craft's amazing.
yeah, yeah,
But you know, it's more the vibe, and I guess it's that whole thing. Like you can't change what's in your heart or what you feel about a person,
yeah.
and the judgment in your mind or your
True.
heart. Like what is actually on the inside does create a vibe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's like so many scientific studies that
Yeah,
say, you know, like people can sense what you're feeling in your heart, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's like certain
Yeah, yeah.
like waves that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
produced.
Rhythms
Yeah.
of the heart.
Yes,
and
I need
all that.
Firefly to come describe this.
Yeah.
But you know, like it's a genuine thing where people can catch a vibe from
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I feel like we've always been able to cultivate an environment of creativity or creatives because you give that vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
yeah.
we want you around and we want to hang out
True, yeah,
just
yeah.
cause.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just cause and
And-
accept you just as you are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like Aaron was saying, like just being driven by like when somebody else finds that passion or like finds that thing in them that like, oh man, I know that I can serve in this
Yeah.
way or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's like so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of judgment and stuff, it's funny because sometimes some of the guys walk in and they're like, man, I've had a horrible day. I just need to sit down. And it's like, I don't know what to do about that. I just keep working, just let them sit there for a bit.
Yeah.
And but even just by being in presence together,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to fix them,
Yes.
but just giving them space where they can sit down and chill out for a bit. And there are days where I'm like, oh, you just chill out, don't do any work, just sit. And I think even just being together like that builds relationship and trust.
That's good, man.
Because I don't know how to fix people. I'm not trying to fix people. I
Yeah.
just want people in my team so that I can hang out with them and learn from them and maybe draw the goal from them.
Yeah.
I'm not having people in my team to fix them, you know.
Yeah.
So
And I
think
guess other people would
It's
be
good, man.
annoyed at that. Like if someone comes in, they're like, you know,
yeah. Like they want to see me fixing people.
no. I'm saying if someone's coming into my office like, oh, I've had a bad day,
Oh,
I'll be
yeah,
like,
yeah,
Yeah.
oh,
Most
Lord.
people be like, oh, can you
true.
go to that next office?
Yeah.
And
Can you go to
the
Ben's
person
office?
Yeah.
who can actually do something about
No,
it.
don't send them to my office.
And that's why I think even for Ben, like in your case, people, it wasn't like you went out and were recruiting people.
Yeah.
People were inquiring and coming to you.
Yeah,
And I think that's a beautiful way to
it's so
build
good.
teams, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because of what's on the inside of
Yeah.
you. And I think that's a challenge for all of us and for all of us to, you know, what are the ways to get that?
Yeah.
I mean, what is that thing?
Yeah.
But I think it does come down to your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Your relationship with God, what you know of Him, what you believe about yourself.
Yep.
Sort of an internal confidence that you carry
Yeah,
that enables you to have that draw. And
Yeah,
I think we can, like Ellie was saying, we want to continue to cultivate that culture where people are accepted. And we've had so many different scenarios, right? Different people that maybe others wouldn't accept, wouldn't give the time of day for, but we have had grace for people in their season.
Yeah.
We have been able to coach them along the way.
Yeah.
And find that because we've stuck it out with people, we've seen the change in people, and we've been able to enhance who they are and see their gift flourish.
Yeah.
Because I think we've taken time. One of the big things that we do say around here is that about loving people to death, love them to death.
Yeah.
And because sometimes people come with their stuff, right? And sometimes even when they're not loving us, that we continue to love them.
Yeah.
And I know that can be a big call,
Yeah.
especially a big call for, you know, if you're leading a team or you got that person who's even maybe turned their back on you. And we've lived in these scenarios too, where people have really gone out of their way to really try and hurt us.
Yeah.
But in the process, we've continued to love on that journey and seen love become the dominating force. And what was meant for evil has actually turned for good. And seeing those people turn a 180 and have reconciliation and come back together. And I think that's only due to the fact that we want to love people to death. Love people so much that those things inside of them that aren't good begin to die.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole act of what
Yeah,
Jesus is about, right?
Yeah.
He loved us so much that we would die to ourselves
True. Yeah.
and
yeah.
become full of
Yeah.
life in Him.
Just to add to that,
Yeah,
speaking
man,
of
please
love,
do.
right? Because I read somewhere that to love is to accept what you see in front of you. So, which means like to love yourself is to accept what you see in front of you in the mirror, or to love someone is, in that context, is to see who this person is despite everything, but to accept it. It's not like a lovey, bubbly feeling that you
Yeah.
have for people in your team, you know?
Right.
Because if they're having a crap day,
Yeah.
you might feel very easy to say, oh, like,
Forget you, man.
yeah, get away from here. But to love them in that context is just to say, I accept whatever I see in front of me, and that's all, right? So I found that really helpful.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Your time starts now. In 1986, what are some tips for building a creative culture and team from scratch when it's not an existing part of the church culture?
Read it again, so it gives me a few
Yeah,
minutes.
for sure. What are some tips for building a creative culture and team from scratch when it's not an existing part of the church culture? Obviously, within, yeah.
My first thought would be that we are to lead our lives well. So if we're leading creatively, we're going to, like Ben said, attract people to who we are as creatives. So if I naturally train and dance all the time and songwrite and produce and really value that and value my own dreams within myself, I'm going to attract people that hopefully want to do those things as well. And I guess even from my experience, I've always given away my passion. So depending on what your craft is or what your passion is as a creative, is this someone who is a creative or not?
I think it's someone who is a creative, who finds themselves in an environment, a church environment, that maybe it's not such a focus. And so maybe the struggle is, how do I connect? Who am I connecting with? And how can I contribute to this community? Knowing that I'm creative and maybe being in a community or a church community that maybe doesn't speak that language
Well,
or think that they are.
you touched on it earlier, is potentially start one project. So maybe it's
Nice.
a video project, or maybe it's a event. Just maybe work on something small
Yep.
and trial it in not a huge pressured environment. So pick an event or something in church life that isn't, is maybe not on a Sunday, so that you can kind of test that
Outside of a Sunday.
project out and just kind of create a little startup team and just do a little, take the pressure off.
Yeah. And I like what you've done, Al, and I think it's something that we want to continue to do, especially at Majestic with other people, and what Ben's now doing and others are starting to rise up in. But it's building relationships around passions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So take dance for example, because it's just a clear example. You have been able to build relationship and lead people, but through dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've found that in the Majestic community and Majestic context, that through dance has been the avenue where people have actually found and understood their purpose, found love, met their creator, accepted Jesus.
Well, I think also you can teach so many life skills just through your craft, right? So
Absolutely.
just like being a good person and showing up on time and having really great qualities through your craft is really, really helpful. And so I've found that if I'm in play the long game with people, like it may not be that in 3 weeks' time that person might fall in love with serving the church and want to follow Jesus.
Long game.
But potentially in 8 years' time,
Yeah, which is a example.
they've gained some life skills. They're treating each other with kindness. They're not judging one another. They're working on their skill. And so essentially they're being discipled without even maybe knowing it. And then they discover that the church is the greatest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And then,
which has really been our story. Been really part of it. We've seen that quite a few times over the years.
Yeah.
I think another thing is in terms of leading people, and it's that scripture. I was just reminded of, someone said something but about flourishing, I guess. That might have been what it was. But that scripture that talks about, those that stay planted
Oh yeah.
will flourish.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I think from a leader's perspective that it's an understanding that for our teams and that yes, that those that stay planted will flourish, but also on the flip side of that, those who flourish will stay planted.
Yeah,
And
true.
so I think from a leader's perspective, it's understanding, knowing that those who are flourishing in your team
Yeah, yeah.
will be the ones
Yeah,
that will
yeah.
commit and stay with you,
True.
or will at least that relationship will be beautiful, that they can be released at the given time or whatever the situation might be. But if you find that people are flourishing in your teams, they're going to be more than likely to actually start hitting you up. Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are we doing next?
Yeah.
How are we going to do it? Hey, I've got this idea, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
flourish.
nice. No, good.
No,
That's
good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Good?
Amazing.
Maybe we should wrap this up so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't keep
Yeah.
going on
Yeah.
and on and on. There's so much that we can be talking about
Yeah.
tonight, and maybe you've got more questions that you can fire to us. There's
Yeah.
plenty more that we could talk about, but we're going to leave it there for tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to be back again tomorrow morning for our last talk. And it kind of leads in kind of beautifully,
Yeah, yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we're going to be talking about theology on creativity. Sort of what we believe about human creativity and spirituality. So there's going to be some really interesting, so I think we're ready for that one. So join us for that one. It's going to be tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. It's our last session together. Anything you want to sign off with?
Be producers of creativity, not just
Oh,
consumers.
there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks guys for being with us again tonight. Have a great rest of the evening, wherever you have joined us from. We're so happy that you did.
Mwah.
Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.